Okay, great. Thank you all for being here today. It's a auspicious day. We have many members of the Department of Environmental Great Lakes and Energy Department here with us today to talk about everything that's happening at EGLE. My name is Karen O'Brien. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and welcome to our very different annual conference this year. As you know, we're doing things a little bit differently, but this is the last week for that. We hope we'll see you for the rest of the week. But before we get started, wanted to share a couple pieces of information with you. Today will be the last day to submit your ballot for the MRC Board of Directors election. You should have received those ballots. Members should have received those ballots April 16th or 20th, and polls close today at 5. Results will be given tomorrow during the annual meeting session. We've already hosted 9 conference sessions. Recordings for all those sessions are available on our website, on the conference page website. We've really had a lot of good sessions, really deep content for 90 minutes, a lot of high quality speakers, really going into very fundamental kinds of learning opportunities for you. So after the session today, we have 2 keynotes planned, a keynote about the supply chain and how circularity fits into the supply chain tomorrow, followed by the MRC annual meeting and annual report, as well as a keynote presentation on Thursday about the paradox of plastic and what we can do about that. Before we get started today, I'd like to thank our sponsors. These sponsors have really been with us for many years and helped to enable the MRC to do all the incredible things that we've been doing for the past several years. So many thanks to our sponsors who have been with us during this really difficult time. So, do business with them. They're great. Matt, you can go on to the 3rd slide, the housekeeping slide. So keep yourself on mute. We all know how to do Zoom these days. Submit questions through chat as you have them, and we will get to those questions probably at the end of the session. Or there is, in this session today, there is an opportunity to go into meetings, and so you can have your questions answered by EGLE staff today in those meeting rooms. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available afterwards. If you have any technical issues or any questions specifically, you can chat directly with Help Desk Terry, and she can help you out. Your view will be highlighting the speaker, such as myself right now, but you really are in control of this view. Up in the right-hand corner of your screen, you can choose your view, get gallery view or speaker view, and you can use a slide toggle in between the presentation picture and the picture of the speaker to adjust the size of your window. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Matt Flechter. He's a market development specialist for the department and has been, I think, our contact for many, many years about recycling, and it's Matt's energy and passion for this work that I think has helped get us where we are today. So thank you very much, Matt Flechter, and you can take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Everybody hearing me okay? Can I get a thumb? Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Karen, for this opportunity. I really like this time of year when normally we're in front of the podiums, we're kind of organizing the governor or directors to come to your conference. And it's really good this year to all be in our homes, being able to participate in this way. So thanks for continuing to do the work that you do over there at MRC. It's organizations like the MRC and so many more. I see so many people are represented on the attendees today, and the work that you're doing out in the communities, in businesses, really does matter. It does get us to where we are today, and I think we have a lot to be proud of. I'm going to walk you through some of that stuff. Before I do, I want to set the stage about why we're all here, why we do this work, why I see the work as important. We all know that recycling is important for the environment. And it is now becoming very clear that it's important for those supply chains, the supply chains that are needed to make sure we have toilet paper and other things for to live every day. And that means jobs. And one of the things that we've done at the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy is really use data to drive our decisions. So making sure that we're making the case to legislators and local officials and other businesses that recycling really is good for the economy. 138,000 jobs will be created if we reach the 45% recycling goal. $9 billion of total labor income and $33 billion in economic output. These numbers are on par with transportation and tourism, which are, we all know what that is, but what are we thinking about with materials? Why? How could that possibly be? And it really is because the choices that we make with the materials that we have every day, really, those choices do end up in creating jobs and economic output. And we have the data to back that up. And making sure that we're, in addition to talking about the environment, we're talking about, or the economy, we're talking about the environment, and particularly the greenhouse gas reductions. What we're doing in Michigan right now is moving Michigan's economy to a low carbon future. And the way we're doing that is many different things. It means solar panels, but it also means recycling bins. $1.4 million passenger vehicles off the road if we meet that 45% recycling rate. Over 700,000 households annual energy consumption. These are big numbers that we all know matter if we are going to meet the climate reduction goals of the governor. At the EGLE Recycling Program, we work to grow access and participation in Michigan's recycling system. And we do that by informing residents on how, where, and why to recycle. Very important, as we are taking an equitable and inclusive approach to expanding recycling in communities. And we're also helping to create training opportunities for recycling professionals. We're improving the quality of Michigan's recycling stream because we know that quality, if we don't have quality materials entering into the recycling stream, we're not going to be able to support our markets. So we're fostering and growing strong markets. We're expanding infrastructure to grow Michigan's supply chain. And we're growing Michigan's circular economy through partnerships like the ones we have with Michigan Recycling Coalition. And as I mentioned, we are moving Michigan's economy forward to a low carbon future by highlighting the importance of recycling. So now I'd like to pass it over to Robert Jackson to give a few words about that. Robert?
Great, thank you, Matt. So 1 second. Okay, thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, Matt asked me to talk about what we're doing in sustainability and tying everything together in regards to what we're doing in the energy, recycling, market development, sustainability, just bringing it all together. And in thinking through it, I really look at it as really 5 pillars, and it really just supports, and those 5 pillars supports the department's goals, agenda, as well as the governor's work towards climate. And in this first pillar, I like to call it catalyst communities. And I think we're going to, most of you know about it, and we're going to get into a deeper discussion with Julie Stavelin when she talks about, what programs we're doing on the energy side. But just to give you an idea of when I talk about catalyst communities and how our current programs fit under that banner, I look at what we're doing in terms of our community energy programs. We're working in 2030 districts. We're working at the community level to drive change. And then we're looking at this year launching Michigan Next Cities. A partnership with Next Energy really is to further drive energy efficiency, as well as some of our sustainability programs that we're doing in local communities. We're also including the Michigan Greens communities into this this banner of Catalyst Communities as we're looking to work with those municipalities to achieve zero carbon, and to look at their operations to become more efficient, not only in terms of energy, but as other in terms of what they're doing in terms of their operations. But a cornerstone to this is really strengthening Michigan's recycling infrastructure. This is really what we're trying to focus on within the Catalyst Communities program, as well as the energy efficiency. The next program that we're looking at as we're looking at developing as part of our work is moving towards a low carbon future. As Matt had indicated, that next cycle is core to this. We can't get there without next cycle, without removing these materials from the waste streams and reintroducing them into commerce. The other is what we call in clean tech, climate tech, and circular economy, and that's really that program will support the work under next cycle. We were also working with the agri-energy and sustainability farming initiative to try to work towards building a low carbon future. And again, we're going to continue our work working with the industrial sector and helping them optimize their industrial processes to lower their carbon emission. The next pillar that we're looking at is what I call clean energy for all. And I guess you can also label as being, which would be more applicable to this setting, is recycling for all. Is what we're looking at is trying to get clean energy into the homes of low, medium income households, and the energy into houses of worship. But you can also look at it in terms of how do you build in sustainability, recycling into what's going on in homes, increasing the recycling rate, educating folks on how best to recycle, and getting that information also into houses of worship. And then we're looking at a series of policy roadmaps. We're working with the University of Michigan to do a series of roadmaps on not only energy, but also on recycling in other areas that are important to us. The fourth pillar that we're looking at is called just and equitable transportation, and that really it's being cornerstone by the work that we're doing in the clean diesel program, as well as what we're doing with the Volkswagen funds, with Charge Up Michigan, Charge Up My Fleet, in order to strengthen the existing infrastructure that we have to transition us away from internal combustion engines into low carbon futures such as electric vehicles, electric buses, and other heavy duty electric forms of transportation. And then the last pillar, I call it pay it forward. It's really building an inclusive workforce. And what this is that we're looking at how do you create clean manufacturing jobs? How do you create equitable, jobs for all within the recycling infrastructure, as well as removing whatever barriers that are in place now to allow folks to move into this area. And we plan to do this by working really closely with universities and other institutions to try to build this inclusive workforce. And then lastly, and through all of these pillars, we want to work closer with other state agencies in order to integrate these pillars of these concepts into those programs. So with that is what we're looking at in terms of building, moving us towards a low carbon future. We want to do it through, Catalyst Communities, our work with industry, trying to advocate clean energy for all, recycling for all, and building a just and equitable transportation system, as well as paying it forward and building an inclusive workforce. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. That's really helpful to see how we are building in recycling as part of this entire sustainability system. And I think what I'm recognizing is that as people who work in the recycling industry, making sure materials move rather than from a curb to a hole in the ground, but the curb to a new product made here in Michigan, we are doing a good job telling the story that this is about climate impact. It's about jobs. It's not just about materials and saving landfill space as it might have been in the 80s, but we're now seeing those other benefits. And I really attribute it to the work of this group, the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and you on the ground making the changes of programs that are needed in your communities and at your businesses. Because you're telling that story that recycling is important on all those aspects, and it's being built into these other aspects of what we're doing at the department. So that was really helpful, Robert, to have this group see that firsthand. Julie, let's talk a bit about Catalyst Communities.
Thanks, Matt. Morning, everyone. As Matt said, my name is Julie Staveland. I'm the manager of the sustainability section within EGLE. I oversee the energy services, pollution prevention, and recycling teams, and also work with the Office of Climate and Energy. And one of the projects that we're currently working on is Catalyst Communities. The Catalyst Communities Initiative is a comprehensive initiative that aims to provide education, training, planning, and technical resources to local governments in order to take steps towards a just transition to decarbonization. So we all know that every department within the state of Michigan has resources for communities, education and training, targeted programs, best practices and guides, as well as funding opportunities. And each of these departments has expertise in their respective areas, whether it's DOT and mobility, DHHS and health initiatives for residents, and even EGLE for water infrastructure, energy, and materials management. Not to mention, there are also the various associations, coalitions like MRC, universities, and nonprofits that are also all trying to help our communities in one way or another. And each of these resources and actions, whether explicitly or not, all take steps towards sustainability, resiliency, and have an impact on climate. Catalyst Communities is not another checklist or action item for communities to work through or to achieve some sort of designation. It's connecting the dots between all the actions a local government can do to all the resources and expertise that's already available and linking those actions to the path of decarbonization. We have 1,856 local jurisdictions here in Michigan, ranging from our big cities to the small villages and townships. Not every community has the same resources, staffing, or areas that they manage. The approach we are taking with Catalyst Communities is to identify all the areas that a local government potentially oversees, gather the resources, best practices, action items, and then break them down into bite-sized pieces that can be consumed in a webinar or a workshop. Free to communities, recorded, and then posted online for future viewing. This takes out the constraints of time, travel, and cost to have access to this type of education and training. One of the first topics we focused on is energy, and through our Clean Energy and Energy Management webinar series, we've provided information on ranging from local government facility benchmarking, energy audits, renewable energy, to zoning. There will be several Catalyst Community sessions during the Michigan Sustainability Conference, if any of you are interested in attending, June 2nd through the 4th. And we're planning more webinars and workshops to be scheduled on various topics throughout the summer, one of them working with Matt and the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and I hope you can join us. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take all our communities to decarbonize Michigan. Matt?
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, I see that similar to what Robert was talking about with this overall plan, how recycling fits into these discussions. I think we've made some really good progress there, and looking forward to helping you with that. It's exciting stuff. So as I was talking about at the beginning about markets and infrastructure and education, let's run through the specific activities that EGLE is accomplishing right now related to grants and education and our campaign. And we're going to tag team this. We're going to go around with different staff giving short updates. Emily, are you available?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So
All
let's
right.
talk about the infrastructure and market development grants.
Okay. Well, you know, Matt and Robert and Julie did a great job kind of bringing it all together. So now I'm going to break it all apart. We're going to break it all down. You know, a lot of you are probably aware that we do grants. If you're not, you know, pay close attention here. In 2019, we gave 32 grants to businesses and communities, both infrastructure and market development. In 2020 and early 2021, we just gave away 46 grants, and we're hoping to partner with more of you here in 2021, we've got a lot of different opportunities. And Matt is going to talk in just a couple minutes about a more innovative, business idea incubator opportunity. But we still are doing this year the traditional grants that are for more shovel-ready projects. We've got some deadlines coming up. May 14th, you'll see that's just for the market development projects. June 16th and August 18th, that's for both infrastructure and market development. So I would recommend, if you're interested in this opportunity, go to our website under the grants tab. We have our RFP there, and I can see Matt's put in there. It's an online application this year, so there is a web portal. And I want to remind all of you, I say this all the time, but before you apply for a grant, please reach out to us. It's really easy to find us. I know that's not always the case for a state government, but we have our names and our phone numbers, and it's all right there on our website. Before you do anything, just pick up the phone and give one of us a call so we can talk through your project, give you some advice. Yeah, just don't be afraid to call us, even if you don't have everything all together in your mind. Just give us a call and chat it through.
So we're so fortunate to have recycling specialists that are focused on that specifically to provide that technical assistance. Some of the work that we do is to help make those connections. You may not know that just down the road somebody else is thinking about something similar that you can work together on. So that's so much of the work that EGLE does and Michigan Recycling Coalition, making sure that we're connecting across those jurisdictions, creating those public-private partnerships. And as Emily indicated, I'll be talking a little bit later about next cycle and what those opportunities provide. But what she just said about shovel ready is where it's at. We have an obligation to make sure that the Renew Michigan Fund is used in a way that grows Michigan recycling opportunities equitably, protects the climate, creates jobs, and gets access and participation increase. This is our commitment. This is what we're doing. And so these grants are really an important tool to connect those companies and businesses and communities with the opportunities that they need to grow and leverage other private sector and foundation dollars. So these market development grants and infrastructure grants are a really important tool, and we encourage you to apply. And as I'll talk about in a little bit, if your project isn't quite ready, you need a little bit more work, we want to help you with that as well. And we have a process to support that through next cycle. So that was a good description, Emily. Thanks for that. Please reach out to us. Our contact information is going to be, we'll share that at the end. It'll be in the slides. But please reach out. Awesome. Now we'll move on to, you're still on.
Yeah, I know. So, and Matt, you hit on this when you first were doing that slide about kind of like the main things that we do, improving access to recycling, participation, infrastructure, growing markets. And right there on there was education about how, where, and why to recycle, how, or was it how, when, and I don't know, how something and why to recycle. So we've been working, as a lot of you guys know, on a statewide public education campaign. It's called the Note Before You Throw It campaign, but most memorably, involves this squad of recycling raccoons. And, I probably don't have to say it to the folks on this call since you're all involved in the industry, but this is primarily a contamination reduction campaign. And I don't have to say it to you guys, but you all know that contamination in the recycling stream impacts, there's probably not a person on this call that it doesn't impact, communities, haulers, processors, brokers, manufacturers. It's all of us. And really one of the key ways to impact that is to have a comprehensive, sustained public education campaign. And we've had a lot of success with this campaign. It's really resonated with people kind of emotionally, but then also the performance metrics have been really impressive. We were a little nervous about it because in terms of the metrics, because we did take a 7-month break during COVID. The campaign went dark for about 7 months, and then we collected data right afterward. But we've seen some really impressive results. 1 in 3 people recalled the campaign. 75% of those people said that it made them more mindful of their recycling behavior, or that they changed their behavior as a result, which, that's the main goal of this campaign, is just to, if I had to say the one thing we want people to walk away, is the awareness that what they put in their recycling container has an impact. And more specifically, we saw impacts in terms of specific messaging, specific things that we've been wanting people to learn. We saw a 36% decrease in the amount of people that think that plastic bags can go in the recycling bin. We saw a 27% increase in the number of people who understand that you can't just throw anything in there and then, they'll sort it out, somebody will sort it out later. And then like a 23% increase in the number of people who understood that you're not supposed to bag your recyclables. So there's specific, while we look at the overall impact, that overall, what you do matters, we're also trying to assess, like, how are people learning about these specific rules. We have had a lot of success with some, no, Matt, sorry, or no, it's not Matt, whoever's doing that. Were you trying to like get the hook? He's like, Emily, cut it up. We've had a lot of success with some local partnerships with the Note Before You Throw It campaign. And we're working in the future on expanding those, this coming year, on expanding those partnerships, as well as working to develop assets in Spanish and Arabic that go beyond just direct translations, which is what we have right now, that go beyond translations into sort of talking about culturally relevant concepts. And then in terms of what we're moving toward later this year and into next year, not just messaging around why recycling is important in terms of economic, but also educating the public on how that helps move Michigan toward climate goals. And then, as Matt has not so subtly hinted with his flipping of the slides, another major education component in terms of contamination reduction is our quality improvement project. This is a project that we're working on in collaboration with the Recycling Partnership. Most of you probably, or many of you have heard of them. They're a national nonprofit. They work with communities and states nationwide on a number of different things. And this project provides technical assistance and funding for contamination reduction strategies. I'm not going to get into the specifics too much here because A, we don't have time, and B, there was a really great presentation on, I think it was April 29th, as part of this MRC conference. And I believe that's, Karen, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that's available to everyone. I would recommend, if you're interested in the specifics and you want to see how a curbside and a drop-off community were impacted by this work, go check that session out. We did
from last night. It's available online.
Good. It was great. If you're interested in the details, go check that out. We are partnering with 14 communities. 7 of the projects have already launched. We have 7 that are launching this spring, and there will be the opportunity to partner with more communities. We're going to open up another round of grants this summer. And we've had communities, smaller communities, reaching out to us saying that they would like to be they would like to participate in this, but kind of in a smaller way. They don't really want to do the whole thing, but maybe they'd like to do a mailer or something like that. So we are working with the Recycling Partnership to create a platform where communities can access a portion of it through small grants, and that will launch more like fall of this year. Okay, Matt.
Cool. That was a lot of stuff. You know, what I like about both of these projects is it's using survey data, it's doing analysis. We have the numbers to back up the work that we're doing. And it's really important to me and this entire crew that when we do something, we know that we're doing it with a purpose. We're not taking a shotgun approach. We're saying we're specifically targeting a problem. And we're doing that in a collaborative effort, identifying those with people on this call, with the Michigan Recycling Coalition, with the partnership, that we have a specific need, and then we're going out and addressing it. With the campaign that Emily mentioned, it was kind of a surprise to me that it directly moved into the quality improvement, contamination reduction, and we're seeing real results on that. And I think I think it says a lot about how we have adapted to the needs of the day and then design programs to support that. And I hope that you agree with that. I'm pretty happy with the way these have turned out, and I hope you are too. Let's talk a little bit about the curriculum that's being developed, and that's along with MRC and Michigan State University. Chad?
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, we are in the early stages of developing a curriculum program targeted at what we're calling recycling leaders. And I think the working title for the project is Recycling Leaders. So we're pretty excited about that. We're glad we're working with MSU and MRC. And I'll try to maybe string together a few concepts so you can maybe get an idea of why we're doing this. So, you know, you heard Emily and Matt talk about infrastructure grants. You heard Robert talk about increasing equity, inclusion, and diversity in the recycling system, workforce development. So a lot of the recycling, and this is also based on several years of our grant making and kind of looking at who applies for grants and who gets grants and what types of projects we're getting. So what we want to do here is build the capacity of our local recycling leaders, and those can be the recycling professionals, they could be local politicians, they could be local activists, so that someone at the local level has the tools to take action to implement a recycling change. Because it's often more complicated than just getting a grant from EGLE to you know, improve your MRF or buy baler or buy new bins. We need somebody with the skills at the local level to deal with the human systems that it takes to implement that kind of change. So those are the types of things we want to accomplish through this curriculum that we're developing. And we're hoping to launch next summer on our current timeline. And I think the people on this call are probably our target market for this program. So hopefully everyone takes note and, you know, looks forward to next year when the program's actually ready to launch and can participate in that. And we're also, with MSU, we're sending out a needs assessment survey. I think it's scheduled to go out tomorrow. So I think Jeff Kirkmerrick's on, and Jeff's working closely with MSU to develop that, and we'll actually be, you know, guiding the project as we go forward. So I don't know if Jeff, if you want to add anything about the needs assessment or any other points about the program.
Take 5 minutes to fill it out. Some of the modules that we're going to be created are going to be regarding planning, grant writing, like Chad mentioned, contracting, metrics, so you can actually measure and manage your waste and recycling, and also include carbon reduction in your grant, environmental justice and diversity, and inclusion. And we want to share some success stories of grants that we have administered. And there's a lot of good practices being created out there, and we'd like to share those through this new curriculum. It's going to be through Desire to Learn, D2L. Desire to Learn. So anyway, it's going to be through Desire to Learn, and hopefully through in-person workshops when we are available. So when we can do that. So yeah, that's where we are right now. We'll be launching it in 2022. And we'll keep everybody updated on where we are in our process. on this.
Yeah, I think a key thing that we're really interested in with this initiative is we're really leveraging the content expertise and the relationships that MRC brings to the table with that educational delivery process and tools that MSU has. So I think we're kind of getting the best of both of those organizations to help provide this high quality leadership training product to, you know, the recycling leaders out there, recycling professionals.
Yeah, rock on. I mean, this couldn't be done without the experience that MRC has already brought to the table and Iris with MRM, our experience over the years, and now being able to have the funding and the expertise and the contract to deploy that more readily to more people, more equitably, is pretty exciting that we're at this stage. And so thank you both for organizing that, and thank you, Karen, for being part of that team. So let's keep going. Let's talk. Another thing that MRC has been involved in with is that the film plastics work. So Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is, I just mentioned sharing success stories, and this is one of the success stories I feel that we need to share, because these items, the shrink wrap has been ignored for a long time, and we have over 1 million boats registered in the state of Michigan. We have 47,000 farms, and they all use shrink wrap. And we needed to divert some of the 5 to 6 million pounds that's created every year by these industries. So the marinas are, a network has been built by Katie at the MRC regarding having a collection program where bags are delivered and shrink wrap is filled up into the bags, and they're dropped off at certain marinas that are participants through MRC. The Ag Plastic grant is a partnership with Farm Bureau in Eaton County. So that's another great partnership, and that's one of the success stories I wanted to share. But it's going on very well, and stay tuned. We'll have more updates as it proceeds. Thanks.
Yeah, and this is a good example of something that just takes the work. We got to do the work. It takes time. It's been years since we started this. We had Brian Burke, and Karen, and I put together a Ag Plastics Forum, and you know, just it's taking time, but you got to stick with it, and we get results. I think that building a market for something, this is a good example of how building markets, it's not just about in markets and demand pull, it's about a system in place to collect and process and haul and transport, bale, and then move into markets. So thank you, Katie and Jeff, for doing all that work that happened. And speaking of markets, the Michigan Materials Marketplace is another one of our tools that I hope that you all check out. We're really building traction. I have a goal by the end of this year to at least meet Ohio's number of listings. We got a little bit of ways to go, but it's always good to have something to shoot for, have a goal. Michigan Materials Marketplace facilitates generators and end users of materials to connect that marketplace to get them into use. It's facilitated. We have weekly meetings. You put something on here, we're going to talk about it. Our team is going to talk about it, identify it, make connections. I can see things. The very first thing that I ever put on to the materials marketplace, which was barrels that were coming in from MDOT being piled up in yards. And now we are seeing that because of the marketplace, we're connecting that market and moving those barrels into a new use, meaning those plastic orange barrels that get crushed on the side of the road when somebody hits them. The construction barrels, those are moving into a new use, which is pretty exciting that we're facilitating those connections. So please check it out and contact me if you have any questions. And then wrapping up here, getting close to wrap up. Next Cycle Michigan. It's been mentioned a couple of times by Robert and Emily. This has been a game changer. What Next Cycle Michigan is a platform to innovate and create an incubation of businesses and ideas, and a way to attract funding and leverage funding from brands, from trade organizations, from businesses, leverage those dollars in our communities so we can meet that 45% recycling rate goal and grow Michigan's recycling and circular economy. I am happy to report that since the launch, we have had over $245 million of investment that has come into Michigan. People are seeing Michigan as the place to invest. We know that we need close to $1 billion worth of investment to meet that. And that's based on data from an analysis that was done a few years ago, all available. But what it is it shows that Michigan is ready for that investment. We're seeing that level of investment. And now what we need is good teams, good partnerships to come together to make sure that material moves from, as I've said, from either the curb or loading dock into a new product made here in Michigan. That's what Next Cycle Michigan is. We've got 2 tracks that have already launched. The Micros track, which is $10,000 small mini grants to support the development, and the Flows track, which is the organics track, identifying opportunities to move organic materials. And please take a look at those. So if you have, what you can do is go to the Next Cycle Michigan webpage, submit interest. You can contact me. I will put you right into contact with the right people. We have 6 innovation challenges. We're using data. Again, we got a little theme going on here, data to guide those decisions. So we're doing in the middle of our gap analysis right now to look at what those opportunities are, whether if it's in transportation or processing or in markets, challenging materials. We are also putting a focus on climate solutions, identifying, building in, just like you'll see in the RFP that Emily and I talked about, where those projects need to identify what climate impacts they're going to have. Similarly, Next Cycle Michigan projects will identify climate solutions. Strong emphasis on public-private partnerships. We recognize that this can't be done only on the backs of local government. We need partnerships and funding. We need private sector to see the business case to grow recycling, and an equitable impact, looking at all of those underserved or communities that have not received funding or businesses that have not, making sure that we are equitably using the funds and the economic advantages. So this is a partnership with EGLE, funding from Renew, Michigan Recycling Coalition, helping to guide and direct, along with Centropolis Accelerator, bringing their tools and resources on business incubation and acceleration, and RRS, the contractor that's organizing and keeping it all moving. So please take a look at it. I know that this is fast. I do want to say that all these presentations, pretty much everything that we've talked about has its own webinar. And we're trying to squeeze this into a really fast, high level, but detailed bit of information for you, so you can reach out and find out more as you're interested. So watch for these things coming down the conveyor. The recycling grants, the training support, connecting recycling with climate and equity, quality improvement and local education opportunities, and then funding opportunities through Next Cycle. And I also want to just take a moment to say how much I appreciate all of the communication and sharing that you all have given us over the years. I can think back to specific instances where we have had a forum like this, and there are, you as the audience have said things like, I'll give you an example. A year and a half ago, we met to give an update on what we were doing, and the composting industry said, wait a second, what about the private sector on our infrastructure grants? At that moment, we had a conversation and said, what can we do to be responsive to your need? We listened, we changed, and now you'll see that in the infrastructure grant, there is an opportunity for private sector to access those funds. We're not going to get it right all the time. And we definitely aren't going to get it right if we don't communicate with the interested parties, the stakeholders, and the people that these programs affect. And so this is just a call to all of you on a call is keep doing what you're doing. Use your voice, talk to us, share your concerns, and help us grow this together. So now let's move on to Rhonda. Let's hear a little bit about the Part 115 update and what you have to share.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Matt. And I just wanted to let you all know I'm Rhonda Oyer. I'm the Solid Waste Section Manager. And there are probably a lot of people on this call that I have met in person, but if I haven't met you, feel free at any time to reach out to me if there's anything I talk about that you want more information on. I'm going to kind of keep this at a high level just to move us along fairly quickly because we want to make sure we have time to get into the breakouts and address some of your concerns and questions and things like that. So most of you know that in addition to data, we also need that policy piece. And we've been working on that for several years now with a variety of stakeholders, different groups that we've had put together that helped inform the amendments to Part 115 when they were introduced. They have made it through the House. And at this point, House Bills 4454 through 4461 are currently in the Senate in the Regulatory Reform Committee. So that's where they sit right now. And we're hopeful that we will see some movement of those bills in the Senate. And hopefully this legislative session, or hopefully even this year yet, we hope to see those move forward and get that policy piece in place. And the underlying policy goal is to, again, shift us from that disposal focus that we've had for many, many years in Michigan to more of a materials management focus. So looking at higher and better uses for those materials that we have in the state and getting those materials back into the manufacturing supply chain, as Matt talked about earlier. So again, we're not out of the woods yet. If people could lend their support to what's going on in the Senate, that would be helpful. I know that MRC has been a staunch supporter of these bills going forward. So hopefully we can keep those moving and see some progress yet this legislative session. In terms of what some of the things that EGLE is doing internally in the materials management division to kind of get ready for when those bills do pass. And a lot of these are kind of under the radar for most people. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the things that we're actually doing internally to get ready for the implementation of the Part 115 amendments. Are things like many of you may have heard about our authorization program and the retrack system, where we're basically working on a single point of application for things like registrations, permits, licenses, general permits, notifications, reporting, all through the retrack system. And we're terming that kind of our authorization program. And you may hear a little bit more about that later from some of our staff that are going to talk here. We're also working on, some of you have heard about the general permit concept, and that there are a number of different facilities that are going to be newly authorized facilities or facilities that we haven't had as much regulatory oversight over that will need to get a general permit. And we have those drafts almost ready to share with the stakeholders. So we're hopeful that we can get those out while this stuff is going on in the Senate on the bills, as we can get the draft general permits out there. So those will be ready and have had that stakeholder discussion that they need in order to move those forward once the bills pass. So we're very optimistic about that and hopeful that that will happen here shortly. We've also been working with RRS as a consultant on our mega data project. And what we've been looking at there is, again, that need for data and just understanding where the challenges, the gaps, what opportunities are out there, kind of what the landscape looks like in terms of what recycling facilities and materials management facilities are out there in our local communities. It's also gearing us up kind of to take another look at planning going forward, where we'll be looking at doing materials management plans rather than solid waste management plans going forward. So giving the counties and the communities the data they need to plan for their needs going forward and to be able to take a look at how do they want to manage materials in their areas. We're also doing outreach and education on planning. And one of the things that we're looking at are doing some community engagement grants to help gear people up for doing their county planning going forward, or doing regional plans if they would like to do that, because we're trying to promote more regional thinking in our approaches to planning. So we're going to be trying to develop a grant program that would at least get the municipalities, the communities, the counties all back involved in the concept of doing planning and moving that forward. We're also looking at internally, since we're adding a lot of new facilities, we're adding a lot of new authorizations, a lot of data collection, some additional Part 115 staff. And this would be field staff and staff in our central office in Lansing, just so that we have those boots on the ground, feet on the street, whatever you want to call them, out there being able to look at these facilities. We're going to have more oversight. We're going to need to do more inspections. So we have those people out there to help with that technical assistance and help with that community engagement going forward. So there's a lot of opportunities here, I think, to start Michigan going in the direction that we're hoping for, in looking at things as more as resources to be utilized rather than stuff to be put in a hole in the ground and buried and dealt with at some future time. So, you know, some of the challenges, of course, are going to be the devil's always in the details, right? So trying to get all these things lined up, there's going to be a lot of work on the solid waste staff in terms of making sure that we're ready to go once these pass, and being able to implement them in a way that's going to meet our stakeholders and the state of Michigan's needs going forward. So I know Jeff wants to talk a little bit more about a couple of our specific program areas and maybe some grant opportunities and things there. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have in the breakout sessions.
All right, Jeff, are you available? So as you're getting ready, you know, what Rhonda is talking about is just this really important combination between funding and policy. You know, having the funding, having the tools and resources out there to gather the data, to deploy leverage funds and grants, do the training is one thing, but also having policy and policy tools available to us. I would say that a lot of our policy tools that we do have are important and successful in making sure that we can continue to move Michigan's circular economy forward. And we're all looking forward to seeing what comes about with 115, and really encourage you to use your voice in making sure that that moves forward in a way that works for you. Jeff, did you want to add something?
Sure.
Okay. Kind of move the slide forward. I opened up there we go. I opened up the chat because I did see Kate Neese's question, and we'll get to that in a second. It's a good one.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if my camera's on, but my camera is on, but I'm not sure if you can see me or not. But
yeah, you got cactus behind you.
All right.
Back up.
Well, good morning. It feels like later in the day than 11:25, but I just wanted to make a couple, I think, brief points of interest within some of our other programs within the Sustainable Materials Management Unit in the solid waste section. And in the interest of time, I'm going to be brief, because I think it is important for us to have the opportunity to get to the breakouts and ask some specific questions. But I did want to highlight three of our programs, and the first one's our e-waste program, our electronics recycling program, headed by Steve Noble as our coordinator. And right now, I think the most significant thing I think people will be excited about is there is electronics recycling grants available until July 2nd. And these grants are 2-year grants typically that can aid in new collection events, adding additional events to other locations, infrastructure, and so forth. And our focus has always been, at least over the last few years, has been on rural Michigan and underserved areas. And we've seen some real successes, I think, with these grants and these projects. and that the networking opportunities that present themselves, the partnerships that are built with our electronics recycling companies here in Michigan, and as well as our manufacturers. And e-waste is handled under Part 173 of NERIPA. So it is unique in that it is a regulatory program, but we also look at it that it is a stewardship program as well. So there are opportunities to partner, work together. And I think the other significant aspect of Part 173 that should be mentioned is that there are ongoing discussions with the electronics or e-waste stakeholder group on making potential changes to the Part 173 statute, which is 14 years old and probably in need of some updating at this point. So kind of stay tuned for that as well. And I will add, these 3 programs will all be represented in the breakout. So if you've got specific questions, please jump on there and we can handle those questions. And if you choose to go to another breakout, you'll have our contact. So we always encourage you to reach out to us. So the second program I'll just touch on briefly once again is our compost and organics program. And I do broaden that a bit to organics, and there's obviously a tie-in here. Matt mentioned the flows piece within next cycle. So there is already some nexus being formed between our composting registration program, I'll call it, but it is currently regulated under Part 115. And we're hopeful with some policy changes that it is going to change our composting registration program significantly, in that it's going to really level the playing field and apply to a broader I guess variety of feedstocks for one. Looking at food waste is certainly a large topic in the organics, and I think as a whole too, our division is starting to look at food waste more holistically. We don't want to look at it just as potentially a feedstock for composting or anaerobic digesting, but we also want to look at it from a source reduction standpoint. We want to look at it, can we feed people or feed animals? So we really want to look at the food waste hierarchy as we move through these. And I think Aaron Heide is our coordinator within the compost program currently. He's a one-man show, I'll be honest. He's working hard to inspect nearly or over 100 registered sites in Michigan now. And obviously COVID kind of put a damper on some of the inspections we were able to do last year, but we're hoping to get back into that mode this year. And also, I think a number of folks within the division are starting to work on, like I said, food waste issues and some really interesting aspects of maybe urban composting and along those types of things. You get into urban gardening and you get into feeding underserved communities and that type of thing. So there's a lot of exciting connections to be made. And I really want to emphasize that it really is about broadening our outlook. We're not just regulating an industry, but we're really looking at improving that industry. And I think one of the great things about our compost program and Aaron is that he's becoming a technical expert of sorts. He's being certified. He understands how compost is supposed to work. So we're not just going out regulating someone, but we're hopefully making them a better composter, which provides a better product, which provides more opportunities for market development. The third program I want to touch on is our scrap tire program. Really one of the more mature programs I think we have in our, within all our programs. And really our scrap tire program is, I'd like to say, maybe I'm biased, but I like to say it's one of the top programs in the country. We have a very sustainable funding source, which obviously helps that a lot. Our coordinator, Kirsten Clemens, works closely with our district staff out throughout all regions of Michigan on the regulatory side of things. So we register scrap tire haulers, and we register collection sites, and we register and certify end users as well. And that's kind of the regulatory side of things. So the exciting thing is, so this year, through having reduction in budgets last year and some additional funding in, we were able to award nearly $8.5 million in scrap tire grants this year. And just real briefly, I think it's worth mentioning our market development grants this year, we feel is the best batch of grants that we've ever had in the program. And I think it's due to the variety. There is a focus on road construction. We've got some very good projects in. I think one project worth mentioning is a partnership with NTEC, who's also partnering with at least 3 and maybe up to 6 different county road commissions, which is really significant because we're making, some real progress there. But their project is going to pave up to 100 lane miles of rubberized chip seal, which is, for us, 100 miles is significant. It's really exciting. And a number of other projects, to Tire Derived Aggregate, which is fairly new to Michigan, so we're trying to break in there. Michigan Tech University has a project. They're working with a couple road commissions, some of our processors, and also too at the end, we're also looking to contract with an engineering firm to do a paving research study that will look at projects that we've funded in the past as well as other technologies, but really looking to get a third-party expertise in there to give us some feedback on that. And the other one is we're looking to potentially contract with a group called Into the Outdoors that do actually Nova specials to do basically a series on the life cycle of a scrap tire. Doesn't sound all that exciting, but it's pretty interesting the way they work with students and things. So we're looking forward to that as well. But just numbers real quick and I'll wrap it up. But within the market development, we just recently awarded 11 grants that I briefly mentioned there. And also today we just received our final approval to award our cleanup side of grants, which is 70 grants, which represent 43 of our 83 counties, which we think is really significant. And these grants cover private cleanups, public collection events, illegal dumping activities, legacy cleanup issues as well. And so we're going to start getting into those hopefully here this spring and into the summer. So with that, I just want to wrap it up and we can break and get to our breakout room. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
That was really good, Jeff. I think the audience probably sees that combining the efforts in market development and cleanup grants and what we're doing in organics and composting and the regulatory program that Aaron and Steve manage, connecting that with the market development work, the renew dollars, the technical assistance, the training, the market development, the infrastructure. When you put all these things together, I think that it's pretty obvious to me why people are paying attention to Michigan. We've got a lot going on. People want to leverage their dollars to make their money go further if they're going to be investing in sustainability and recycling activities. So when you talk about the market development grants and telling the stories of all of the good things that we have, so many of the ones, the 23 market development grants that we have this year that are not tire related, like at each one of those, we recognize that those legislators that are announcing them at our press events, they're getting to tell that local story, and they connected it. You can watch it happen. They're connecting the story and they're seeing, oh my gosh, recycling and using a tire differently than what its end of life does matter, and it not only matters for the environment but the economy. And I just think that's why people are paying attention. It's an exciting time. So let's if I can get the slides to work. Okay, so there's contact information. You've already gotten through that. We'll have these in the slides that when you share them, when they're available online, you can grab our contact information off of there. So let's do this. Let's spend about 20 minutes and then we'll come back with 5 minutes. So actually, you know what? I'm going to cut that down to 15. So I think that I just shared my screen again. Can I get a thumbs up if that's the case? So let's did. So we only have a few minutes here, obviously, because we had a lot to talk about at the beginning. And I want to remind everybody that we didn't cover everything. There's a lot going on. And so to stay tuned, connect with staff. We heard some questions in our breakout session that were specific to issues that you're dealing with, and that's what we do every day. Answer those questions. Like Kate needs asked a question about recycling measurement and how we measure and what our system is and where that data is. What I'll do is I'll drop, like I said in the chat, I couldn't quite figure out how to do it while I was in the breakout room, but I'll put it in the main chat here in just a second. the recycling rate report and the market analysis. We also heard from Tim about some specific projects that they're looking at in Bay City. So there's a lot of exciting movement. Anybody from the other groups want to report out what their conversations were? Anything that should be brought to the full group?
I guess, Matt, I can just say in the planning and authorization breakout, we essentially talked about the future of planning if Part 115 amendments don't go through and what that looks like, and if we would be calling for planning. And the answer is yes, we would be calling for planning regardless. We know that needs to happen. And we've been putting it up thus far, kind of trying to wait and see if we get the policy piece in place. So yes, we would be proceeding with planning going forward. Hopefully the end of the year will be the time for us to make that decision one way or another. If the amendments have moved, that's what we're hopeful for. If they don't, we're going to have to make a decision to move forward anyway. And there was also a discussion of the size of the planning committee. It's down from 14 to 11 members on the planning committee, and there are some exceptions for a smaller planning committee down to 7, depending on the communities involved. And also there is additional funding for doing regional plans of $10,000 per county, additional to the amount that a single county would be getting for going forward with their planning. So those are the main things we covered, but if folks have other questions, please let us know and we'll get those answered for you.
Great. That's exciting that we're making all that progress on planning and seeing how that piece fits together. Anything from the scrap tire e-waste regulatory program or the compost program?
Yeah, Matt. We had some real specific questions, and maybe the one thing worth mentioning. So we had a little food waste discussion at the beginning, and I know Roger Cargill and Aaron are going to be doing a webinar on May 24th. Mm-hmm. So we might want to. We'll maybe get that dropped in the chat. But for those of you folks that aren't aware, there is going to be a webinar next week. And the title escapes me at this point, but it is food waste focused. If you're interested at all in the food waste topic out there, I would highly recommend you take in that webinar, or at least register and look at the recording at some point. And I think, if I may, food waste is one of those topics which is really interesting that we have to continue to strive to look for those connections, because there's all sorts of aspects of food waste out there. If you look at the hierarchy, it's not just how food waste goes into a compost pile, but it's how are we feeding people, how are we reducing the source of food waste, and looking at the whole picture. So it's a big topic. And we had a couple other questions regarding electronics recycling. Mm-hmm. On the grants. Actually gave Washtenaw County some good news. They were wondering about their scrap tire cleanup grants, and we just got formal approval today. This morning it came across my desk, so that was good timing.
Yeah, it's good to be able to give those updates and have an opportunity. So thank you, Kieran, for helping to make this happen, that we could have this conversation, do the report out, report on what EGLE's been up to, how the Renew Michigan dollars are being used, and what tools and resources we have in our toolkit now to help grow Michigan's circular economy. So now you had a few slides. You wanted to do something here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate all of the work that EGLE is putting into everything recycling. We are really experiencing a recycling renaissance, and it is because we have ongoing funding, and EGLE is the steward of that funding, and it's imperative for our leaders at the state level to identify the gaps and find and help people and organizations step up to meet those obligations with the funding that's available. And so appreciate all the work that is going into the work at the state level. And the name of the game right now is really networking. I consider everybody on this call really a subset of the leaders that are making recycling happen in Michigan. And if we are to move big things, it is going to be because you are all developing the partnerships necessary to bring the big ideas into play. So we want to support you at this level. Please don't hesitate to reach out to make that happen. I will thank again our sponsors for putting, allowing us to put this together for you. Communication is a really important part of the work that we do, connecting our network and making sure that we provide information to help you achieve your goals. We do have 2 polls before we end today. I'll ask Kelly to put the first poll up. We want to hear from you about how the session was for you today. How informative was this session for you? And we'll give that about 20 seconds for people to let us know. Okay, great. And Kelly, how about the second poll? A little bit more detailed about how you're thinking about and planning for funding opportunities. You can choose a number of answers. Have you already received a grant? Are you considering another grant? Are you looking at next cycle opportunities? We want to know kind of where you are in your process. If your answer is no, we encourage you to really think about what you can leverage and move in your region to achieve the larger goals that we have together to move recycling forward in Michigan. We'll leave this up for another couple seconds. All right, Kelly, you can probably end polling there. And then, you know, just remind you that we have 2 more days of sessions left. Tomorrow is a 2-hour session. The first hour will be circularity isn't charity, it's operational strategy. How do we make our supply chains circular? So this will be an important conversation, as well as hearing about what MRC is doing and what our plans are for moving forward. And then Thursday, we've got the paradox of plastic. Nina Butler from STINA, which is a new name for More Recycling. They're plastics experts, really international plastics experts. And Ralph Chammy from the International Monetary Fund will be talking about plastics and how carbon credits and kind of other climate mitigation strategies really apply to fixing this plastic problem that we have. So I hope you'll join us. I want to thank Matt Flechter for organizing this, all of our friends at EGLE for doing the work you do and sharing that with us today, and of course the people who attended. Thank you for giving it your time today. Please share the word about these sessions and others so that we are bringing others along with us on this recycling journey. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Karen.